Okay, well, welcome everyone. I see that we have most people who will be joining us today, and as people filter in, we'll clue them in. But this is the third of the three energy benchmarking trainings that we've been hosting as part of the Energy Efficiency Planning for Rural Communities Technical Assistance Program. Um, and just some quick housekeeping as usual. Just keep yourself muted if you can throughout the presentation. Feel free to throw any immediate questions that come to mind in the chat. Especially, I mean, if you have any lingering questions from some of the past sessions that we've been holding, feel free to throw them in the chat now. And we will, as usual, hold a question and answer section at the end. And we'll also talk more at the end about some upcoming office hours that we'll be holding to continue our learning around how to use Energy Star Portfolio Manager to do energy benchmarking for our municipal buildings. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Claire from Power Options, who will start taking us through this third session. Thank you, Claire.
Great. Thank you, Casey. So just to go over again, a reminder, recap of what we covered in the last two sessions. The first session on September 25th, we talked about the basics of benchmarking your buildings, understanding your energy bills, and getting started with Portfolio Manager and benchmarking in Portfolio Manager. And we gave you a couple homework items to test out on your own in the week between session 1 and 2. And with session 2 last week, October 2nd, we covered sharing, dashboards, and reports. We did multi-building dashboards, single property dashboards, custom reports, and using templates within Portfolio Manager. And also, as usual, we gave you a couple of things that you can try out on your own with Portfolio Manager between last week and this week. And for today's third and final Energy Star Portfolio Manager training session, we are going to cover maintenance and troubleshooting. And for maintenance, that really encompasses a lot of things. That encompasses setting your energy baselines and targets, or I should say your energy and emissions baselines and targets, both for portfolio-wide and single property for energy and for specific properties for emissions targets. And beyond that, there are best practices for data maintenance with Portfolio Manager that we'll go through, and how to run custom reports that will be very important as you go forward and capture Portfolio Manager data on a running basis so you can continue your benchmarking practice and note trends and progress towards your goals and your targets. Then we'll spend the third and final section section talking about error messages and troubleshooting. The data quality checker that we've mentioned in the last couple of sessions, we're going to spend quite a bit of time on that and how to use that really helpful tool to identify specific items that need your attention or are just good to know about and be aware of. And we'll also show you how to view your energy meter data, because it's not always the most intuitive to get to. It takes a little bit of muscle memory. So we'll show you exactly how to access all of your meter data for specific properties and meters so that you can more easily get to those and view and edit your meter information. And then just a couple of final tips on knowing when to do certain things in Portfolio Manager or reach out to us or others for help. And we're going to close with some last closing resources so that you feel like you can go away from these training sessions with all of the links and references and resources you need to be really successful in Portfolio Manager and using it for your communities. All right, so with that, we will get started with setting baselines and targets for energy. So there's two breadths of energy baselines and targets you can set. One is for portfolio-wide baselines and targets, and the other is for just single building. Um, so it's nice that you have that flexibility, and you can set baselines based on energy use from a specific year, water use from a specific year, or waste from a specific year. And the energy use baseline is going to be most relevant to you because uh, we're not saying that you need to include water or waste now. Those are things that you can include if you want now or at some point in the future, but energy is really the key one. And the key target types, you can use these specific ones, or you can come up with your own, but wanted to give you a starting point of a couple targets you can start thinking about setting goals for. So one is targeting a specific Energy Star score, and Energy Star Portfolio Manager gives you a specific Energy Star score, and it's from 0 to 100 based on your EUI in a building. So that means that you have to have all 12 months of data for Energy Star to give you a score for that building in question, but 0 is not good. 100 is the best you could possibly do in terms of energy usage intensity. And in gray here, I've given just a couple of example goals that you can set for your communities. And it'll be an iterative process. So you and your communities can decide what the best goals are for you, or you can just take these and run with them as your goals. So that's target number one. With a little explanation on what Energy Star scores are. Another target type is targeting a percentage EUI better than your baseline. So your community will have a baseline EUI score. Again, that's energy usage intensity score based on the energy usage data that you've put in. And so you aim to lower that percentage over time, because that means that you're improving your energy performance when the EUI goes down. The third target type that we included here is targeting a percentage better than the median source baseline based on EUI from similar US property types. It's a little wordy, but I wanted to include the exact language that they have in Portfolio Manager, but this one essentially means you're targeting improving your building's uh, EUI score in comparison to similar US property types. So this really helps you to be able to compare your buildings to similar US buildings. And so you're not just comparing your building to your building's baseline, but you're comparing your building to other buildings that have similar property use types. So both of these metrics, all three of these metrics are really helpful to have as targets. Again, you do have to have 12 months of consecutive energy data to have these work. And I wanted to stop sharing the presentation so that I can share a little overview of how to how to set baselines, and then how to set energy targets. So let me share my screen for Energy Star Portfolio Manager. All right. So one of the easy way to set a portfolio wide baseline is or targets are to go right to your homepage. So when you log in, your screen should look like this. You'll have all of your listed properties here. The ones that you see here, again, they're just EPA sample property types with sample data so that we can view this together. And your My Portfolio tab is the one that should pop up immediately. So if you scroll down to the Manage Portfolio section here, you will see a little icon here, and it says set a portfolio baseline and or target. So that is where you will click to set your portfolio-wide baselines and energy targets. And for all of you, we would recommend letting portfolio manager automatically set your baselines. That would be based on the energy use that you put in for the first 12 consecutive months that you have information for. And the only reason why we're recommending that you default to letting portfolio manager set your baselines right now is because it'll make your life easier for the moment. But in the future, or if you're feeling like you have a handle on this, you're welcome to select a specific baseline year that you would like. So let's say your community is going to include baseline energy usage data from starting from 2022, and you want 2022 to be your baseline year, or 2023. You can make sure that you select the year and the month. And remember, the way that selecting a year works is that if I selected January 31st, 2024, the baseline year would be for the January 31, 2023 to January 31, 2024. So this date that you select is for the last day of the baseline year. And anyway, so that's a brief primer on setting baselines for energy. You can also do it for water and waste if you want, if you have water and waste data included in there, but not necessarily needed at this point. And for setting energy targets, you just scroll right down here past baselines, and you can decide what you would like your targets to be. You can target a specific energy score, and these three are the ones that we just mentioned in the slides. So you can toggle and select any of these as your target if you'd like, and then you target a specific value. So if you wanted your energy score target to be 70 or 75 or 80, you can say target energy score and then write that in here and click save baselines and targets. The one thing to be very careful of, though, is that once you put in a specific target for one of these target types, it overwrites any previous portfolio-wide target that you have for that target type. So just be aware, you may, every time you save your target, you could be overwriting a previous target. Great, and then to set individual property targets and baselines, actually, let me go back because I did that a little too quickly. You go back to your home page, and again, you can either click this logo up here or the My Portfolio tab, and then in the right-hand side, it lists all your buildings. So let's say I want to set a target for the library. I'll click on that hyperlink for the library, go to the Energy tab, and then, sorry, my screen is a little bit hidden. Oops, where'd it go? Sorry, everyone. You go to the Goals tab and scroll to Baselines and Targets, click Set Baseline or Target. You can also view the targets that you already have here. And it follows essentially the same format. So this is just for a specific property, and you can either let Portfolio Manager set your baseline, or you can set your baseline year for energy, water, or waste by choosing the last date of your desired baseline year. So you can let Portfolio Manager choose for you, or if you'd like, you can select it yourself. And to set an energy target, it lists here all the targets that you have already selected for this property here, which is nice and handy. And then if you want to either overwrite any of those targets or add a new one, you just select what type of target you want to include, write in the value for that target, click save and calculate other metrics, and then you'll save baselines and targets from there. And the other thing that I wanted to show you is setting targets for emissions. And to do that, you don't choose an emissions target portfolio or an emissions baseline portfolio wide the same way that you choose energy baselines or write in energy baselines. But what you do for emissions targets and baselines, excuse me, targets, is again, you go to the specific properties. So this time I'll go to the school. You will then go to the emissions tab here. And this is where you can see your targeted performance over time. So in just a minute, I will go back to the slides because I think I have one that outlines several targets that you can choose and then monitor based on this emissions tab here. But you are able to see various changes from the baseline energy use to current energy use tracked against different emissions metrics. So you can look at the change in greenhouse gas emissions intensity, total greenhouse gas emissions. You can set targets based on fuel mix. So if your community is really they have a strong goal towards electrification, you can set a goal to reduce your reliance on fossil fuels and work to make the electric slice of the pie here a little bit larger. You can also track emissions decline over time, hopefully decline and not increase. And below here, you can track your emissions intensity compared to similar US properties that have a similar property use type. Uh, so that is a very quick primer on how to set emissions, energy and emissions baselines and targets and edit them as well. I'm going to go back to the slideshow. And this slide just shows, again, the specific target types that you can choose for emissions and example targets that you can choose from, which you're welcome to use these ones here, or you're welcome to modify for your community if you'd like. So we're moving on to section 2 here, portfolio data maintenance. And we can't stress this enough. It's so important to develop your own community's Energy Star portfolio manager maintenance schedule, maintenance protocol. So the first aspect of that is creating a maintenance schedule for your data. So in the next slide, we will go into recommended cadence and scheduling, but the schedule is key in figuring out when will certain data maintenance, cleanup, input tasks occur, and who, and related to that, who is going to be performing these tasks. So number 2 in the data maintenance protocol that I recommend all of your communities create as probably a Word document or a PDF of some kind. Who is going to be performing these maintenance tasks for this portfolio manager data? And do all the people that need to perform data maintenance in portfolio manager have accounts? Do they have access to the community's properties and their data? Where should reports be saved that are generated? And who will have access to those saved reports and other data that you pull from Portfolio Manager? Will that be in a central workspace that is shared and owned by the facilities department, or will that be housed under your community's sustainability team, or under the town manager's office? And just figuring out the nuts and bolts of how this will work and where the data will be organized and stored, and creating and maintaining a resources and templates library. So I recommend you create your own. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but just a quick reference guide for your community of where to access things like these slideshows and recordings, other uh, other access points for your community's data, like where to find utility bills and um, where to access certain report templates that you create. And we have a resource slide at the end of this slide deck that we'll get to, and you can use that as a starting point for your resource and template library. All right, and related to the maintenance schedule, as promised, this is our recommended cadence for data maintenance. Again, we highly recommend you use this as just a starting point and figure out what works well for your community. But generally, we encourage you to upload utility bills monthly. That includes dates that the utility bill applies to. Um, if it's a delivered fuel, what's the date of delivery on that fuel? Uh, if there are listed demand charges on the electric bill, you can write that in, as well as the total cost of the utility bill invoice. Um, just making sure you have a system for uploading those monthly bills once a month, because otherwise it feels a little overwhelming and unwieldy once you have many months of utility bill data that's not in there and you have to go back and find it. And it's a much bigger project that way. And we also recommend on a quarterly basis completing a data maintenance checklist, which we have a draft of on the next slide, that again, you can take what we have and modify it for your community. Running and saving custom reports for all of your properties as well is another quarterly thing we recommend, and we'll cover that in upcoming slides. Annually, we recommend sharing a portfolio data report with your community's leadership. That could be just sharing a custom report with them of your portfolio property data and energy performance and emissions in the last year, but figuring out when your leadership may want to see that and where to store that, in addition to a couple of as needed tasks, which is adding and removing meters as needed. So if you add another electric meter in a building, or you retire a natural gas meter in favor of electrification or something, just making sure that your meters lists are tidy and up to date, as well as adding, removing, or editing properties. So did your community acquire a new building or sell a building or renovate a property so the square footage is now different and you need to update it? So those are a couple things that you can do on an as needed basis. And another quick note on the right hand side here, this cadence can be done against your calendar year or your fiscal year, but I recommend just noting in your data maintenance protocol which you're using to complete these tasks under, especially when tracking annual reporting. And we do recommend just going with the fiscal year, because that simplifies the schedule alignment against your community budget cycle. And I believe that's, sorry, I have a little bit more to go on the data maintenance. So as promised, this is the data maintenance checklist. We recommend doing all of these items quarterly. So scanning for data gaps and errors using the data quality checker for your desired time range. Um, the data quality checker always checks for 12 full months, but you can still run it quarterly. It just may have months that you've scanned for before, but it's always helpful to have that quarterly check so that you can see um, if all of the data in that past 12 months is still up to date and accurate. And we'll get more into the data quality checker and flags and error messages later on, but just keep in mind that if there are items to adjust based on the report, based on the alerts from the data quality checker, I would address that. The next thing is filling in any missing data, any missing meter data or bills, or removing any unnecessary meter data or bills, correcting meter timelines so that none of the meter date ranges are overlapping with each other or duplicates of each other, and verifying your units and fuel types that you've entered for meters and utility meter bill data. And if you're inputting delivered fuels, which some of you are, if you're inputting energy bills, you just want to select enter as delivery when inputting those meter bill data entries. And the last thing here may or may not apply for some of you, but there are ways to use a campus property or child parent property relationships when setting up properties. So it's good to check that those relationships are still accurate for your properties. And we're not going to do a screen share now to show you that check since it may not be relevant to all of you, but I'll have Eden just speak briefly to what could count as a parent or a child property, since there's a couple of scenarios where you may want to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Using the campus or the child and parent properties is good when you have buildings that are touching, like or they share a wall, or if they share an electricity or utility meter. For example, if you have your town hall, and if your town hall is next to a police station building, and they're two separate buildings, however, they share a wall, and maybe they share an electric meter together, you could create a parent building, name it town hall and police station, and then within that have two child buildings, one for the town hall and then one for the police station. And that way you can track the energy at the portfolio level, especially if it's not possible to submeter or see the individual usage between each building.
Thanks, Eden.
Okay.
And oh,
I'm sorry, Claire.
Yeah, did you want to speak to the data quality checker?
Yes, and I can give a little more information on the data quality checker. Um, and this can check your data at 12 months at a time. So like 1 year at a time. It will flag any error messages or alerts. For example, if you don't have completed data for the time range selected. And red alerts mean data is missing or and action will be needed to correct it, whether it's filling it in or updating the data. And if there is a red alert, that means that some kind of that the metrics or the analysis in the summary tab will not work or will not be able to perform. For yellow alerts, this is just a little bit of a lower priority. It's just to be aware. It is indicating there could be an anomaly in the data, but action may or may not be needed. Okay, and I am going to share my screen now, just to show you briefly um, how to run the data checker. Can you all see my screen? Perfect, thank you.
Yes.
And I believe I showed last week how to do it, but it's always good to have a refresher. So you're gonna go, well, let me back up a bit. You're gonna click on the building you wanna check the data for. You're gonna make sure you're in the summary tab, scroll down to data quality checker, and then click check for possible errors. And when you're checking the year or when you're checking the data, you're going to put the last day of the 12 months range. So if I want to check 2023 data, I will put December 31st, 2023, run checker. And there's no alerts, so there's no alerts for this data. I think there is no 2024 data on this sample property, so if I do rerun that one, you can see alerts pop up as well. And I'll go over a little bit more detail of those alerts on the slides.
Sorry, just one moment.
Yep, so first I'll go over the red alerts. One common one is that there is not 12 full months of meter data in the selected time range, and action is needed. And to rectify this alert, you'll just have to enter the missing meter data in it. And on to the right side, we have an example here. Then meter names are blacked out for privacy for the organization. But typically, if you get this alert, it'll have the meter name and its hyperlink. So you can just click it, and it'll take you right to the meter that has the issue. Another common alert is there are gaps in the meter entries. And for that, very similarly, you'll just have to go into the actual meter and make those changes and update the data. And I'll give you the time range as well. In this example here, you can see like both alerts are for the same issue. So just adding the data will get rid of, or fixing one will fix the other as well. And that happens oftentimes with these alerts, is that sometimes there's multiple alerts just for the same problem. Thank you. Another common alert is meters have overlapping meter entries. For example, if the start dates and end dates and within a meter are overlapping as well. And similar to that, you can click the hyperlinked meter name or manually click onto the energy tab, click onto enter your bills button, and then open the meter view page. And then you would just have to review the accuracy of the monthly entries, make sure that they're not overlapping dates, and then it will run correctly. One other red alert I just want to mention real quickly is sometimes if for whatever reason there's a data range or a start and end range for one bill over 65 days, that will be flagged as an alert as well. Obviously, if there's a billing that has that covers over 65 days, there's nothing that you can do about it. But and for that specific red alert, you can ignore it. It's just warning you that some specific weatherization analysis cannot be performed. Moving on to the yellow alerts, as I mentioned before, for the yellow alerts, action may or may not be needed. Common alerts in this category will happen when the EUI or energy usage intensity appears either too high or too low compared to a typical building with that use type. And we just recommend to review the entered information for accuracy to make sure that the EOI is actually correct. And this includes reviewing the property's listed gross floor area. And you can do that by going onto My Portfolio and then clicking on the specific property, clicking onto the Details tab finding the basic information table. And then on that table, we'll have the reported gross floor area. And if that is incorrect, you can click onto the Edit button to correct that. Additionally, we recommend reviewing the property's meter data, such as electricity, natural gas, or delivered fuels. And errors you want to look out for include incorrect units, incorrect usage number, or possible missing or duplicate meters. And for that, similar with the red alerts, you're going to go onto the My Portfolio tab and click on the specific property. Then you're going to go onto the Energy tab, click on the Enter Your Bills button to open the Manage Bills and the Manage Bills page. And then you're just going to review the basic meter information for you're going to enter my apologies. You're going to review the basic meter information box to check the units, and then you are going to review the monthly entries to ensure that the usage is correct and there are no missing or duplicate meters. And make sure you are displaying the correct year or just simply showing or selecting show all years. So you are to ensure that you're going through the correct time range. Oh, and another common alert for the yellow. I'm sorry, I think I disappeared for a second. Am I back?
That's all right, you're back.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, another common alert you may get for a yellow alert is one saying that the property has no water meters. And again, actually may or may not be needed. It is up to you if you want to track water data or not. If you would like to include your water meters and track water, again, you'll go click on the relevant property. You'll click onto the water tab this time, and then click Add a meter. And then you'll fill in all the basic information like the meter name, the units, and then enter in the usage. You might also see a yellow alert that says no waste meters or waste information added as well. That again is something extra you can track if you would like, but is not required.
Yeah, and speaking of meters, you can tell that most of the checks, the error messages and alerts that you will get from the data quality checker have to do with checking your various meters information for electricity or natural gas or delivered fuels. And again, that's one of those things where in the data quality checker alert itself, it'll often have a hyperlink right to the page that allows you to view the meter data itself for the relevant meter. But if you're just trying to access that manage energy meters information page from the website, from the homepage, we'll show you how to do that now. And Eden, would you like to take people through that step? Oh, and Eden, you're muted.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay. And is my screen showing?
Yes. Yes,
Perfect.
it is.
Thank you. Okay. For troubleshooting or accessing the Manage Bills page, I'm going to start from the beginning. At the home screen, I'm going to click on the specific property I want. I'm going to use the sample library as the example. Then I'm going to go to the energy tab. And then to access, click on manage bills, or I apologize. I can access the bills in two ways. I can either find the meter name, which I scroll down here and find the problem meter. I can click on it that way. Or I can go toward the top on meter summary, and there should be enter into the energy tab. There we go. And in the top left box under meter summary, enter your bills. I can do it that way as well, and I can choose which meter I want through this drop down at the top. And to edit, I can edit the basic meter information, so like the name, the units, when the meter became active, or whether or not it's still in use. And I'll just have to click Save Changes. Make sure you do that. And you have to save your changes in the top box before you edit the bottom box. Or I will ask you to do that. Just something to be aware of. And then if you wanted to check the actual usage, you can expand the monthly entries box. Oops. And I would just make sure that you're displaying the correct years you want. Portfolio Manager oftentimes just automatically defaults to showing you the most recent year, but if I wanted to see 2022 specifically, I just make sure I click onto that, or I could simply click Show All Years to see all the range. And then from here, you can just click on to the individual entries you want to adjust. If I wanted, oops, I don't know why I did that. Yeah, for example, if I wanted to adjust the date to the 11th, the 20th, whatever, or I can adjust the usage or the cost values. And other options, for example, if I had duplicate usage, I could hit the select box and then hit delete selected entries. I'm not going to do that now because the data is correct. Or selecting add another entry allows you to update your portfolio or make any changes as well. I'm going to delete this one though. And for this meter, you just want to get rid of completely. You can also select delete all meter data for this meter. For example, if it was you accidentally uploaded the natural gas information, and this is an electric meter. And I believe that is it for this. Is it or anything else I'm missing, Claire?
No, that's about everything. And then just making sure you hit save at the end, and
Yes.
be very careful if you're trying to delete meter data, especially if you are trying to delete just one entry, and be sure that you're not selecting delete all
Yes.
entries. But I have full confidence that all of you will see the difference there. But that's all that we have for the Manage Bills Meters entries page. So we can go back to the slideshow for Eden's last slide in this section.
And now I'm just going to go over just a few other error messages or troubleshooting things. For example, one thing to note is when you enter data, Portfolio Manager sometimes inputs default values or assumptions. For example, occupancy hours, number of workers, that kind of information. However, if that is not accurate for your property or you want to update that, you can do that, and those default assumptions could make your data inaccurate if that is something you were specifically looking at. And then I also quickly wanted to go over updating your data versus correcting your data. You can update with new information, which will allow you to track changes over time, and document what has changed. For example, if you renovated your building and increased the square footage by 10,000, that would be updating data, versus correcting mistakes will allow you to change a value that was entered in error, for like if it was a typo. But there would be no record of the previous number for correcting the mistake. Additionally, you can add another property use type for a subsection of the property. And for example, if you had a building that was the first 3 floors maybe were an office, but the next 4 floors or 4 floors were residential, that would be like multiple property use types, and you can add them as well. Um, and we suggest that if a subsection accounts for like 10% to 25% of the property's gross floor area, to add that subsection. The reason why there is a range is because portfolio manager recommends adding the subsection if there is 25, if it consists 25% or greater. However, a lot of reporting mandates recommend adding the subsection if it consists of 10% or more. We also recommend adding a subsection if it is vacant or an unoccupied office or medical office, and is greater than 10% of the property's gross floor area.
And I'm just going to jump in very quickly because I know a lot of you are probably thinking medical office. That doesn't really relate to any of our communities, but on the off chance that any of you have any municipally owned or operated community health buildings, that would apply to that.
Thank you. And yeah, we also recommend adding another property use if the subsection's hours of operations differ by more than 10 hours from the main property section. But however, we do want to note that you don't want to oversplit property types, as that can lead to additional complications and just more work for like data maintenance and cleanup as well. If you have any solar, wind, or battery storage, net metering credits, REX data, please reach out to us with assistance in adding those in as well, and if they're applicable to your community.
Thanks so much, Eden. Yeah, I also want to stress that for number 3 here, in adding other property uses for subsections of your properties or buildings, you don't need to overly agonize about it. It can change your EUI and energy usage or emissions values depending on what the subsection is. But it's not going to make a huge difference. So these are general guidelines. And if you have any questions about whether or not you should split your property into an additional property use, please ask us and let us know, or ask Casey Zorn, who is also on the call and is representing Maine for this program. Before we wrap up, I wanted to share with you how to create, save, generate, and access custom reports. So I'm going to go back to Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And these custom reports, we spoke about them a bit in last session's training. These are going to be reports that you can very easily customize yourself. You can create your own custom metrics and have several different templates if you want to track different things. So I'll show you again how to create new templates, but I will also say that we've created one together as a program team for the Maine EEPRC communities, and we have a link to this template that we'll share with all of you. It's also in the slide deck. It will be in the follow-up emails. But that report has pretty much all of the information that you would want in your quarterly run of a custom report to track your energy emissions, general building and meter data. So before we get to anything else, again, quick reminder how to create a new template. Once you're in the reporting tab up here, you'll go down to create a new template, click that button, give your template a relevant name so that it's very clear what the purpose of the template is. So let's say I want to track emissions only. And as far as time frame goes, you have a few different options of what time frame you want to select for your template report. I think that I want to select, let's see, I want to select the current year versus my baseline year. That is what I think I want to do for this template. And I'm going to track energy. I think for most of you, energy is going to be the one that you select here. You can select the properties that you want run as a part of this template report, or you could also filter by property type or construction status. If you have properties that are still being built or that you want to exclude, you can exclude them that way too, rather than clicking and unclicking each one. So I will click apply selection to make sure that all of those properties are included in this template report. And this is probably the most important area of creating a report template. You can go into here and select from various categories. For this one, I'm just going to go to greenhouse gas emissions, since that is the one I'm tracking or the one I'm creating. I'm just going to click on a few of these since we are running a little low on time, but more or less just wanted to show you how you click onto metrics that will be pulled for the report. And you have 50 maximum metrics that you can choose from any of these categories. I will click apply selection and save my template. And from here on out, whenever you are in your reporting tab, if you scroll down to my reports and templates, this is where your template will live that you've saved. And let's say that you want to actually run your template report now. So I am going to run the Maine EEPRC community report template. And as an action, I'm going to click on the I want to field. And there is a current report there, but I want it to generate a new report. So I'm going to click here. And boom, it has generated a new report. And you might think, is it downloading somewhere? Do I click on this icon here to access it? But the way that you actually access a generated report is you go to this action tab again, click I want to, and then you can either view the current report or download the current report in Excel so that you have it saved. I believe I mentioned it or included it on a slide previously, but please note that when you generate reports, you really, really want to save it immediately locally on either your shared workspace or your computer that you use for your community work, because Portfolio Manager only saves these files for 90 days, and then after that, it deletes them. Or if you run it again, it overwrites the previous reports generated. So always, always save those reports in a safe place according to your data maintenance protocol. And that is all I have to share with you on custom reports for now. And with the last few minutes we have, this was a bit of a longer session than the last few. When we share these slide decks with you, It'll include several key resources and places to go if you have questions directly from Portfolio Manager, including a reference guide, glossary, FAQ, several other trainings, as well as all the training slide decks from our 3 sessions, including today's, all the recordings from our training sessions. And this is the link here for that Maine EEPRC community report template. So if you click on that link, you should be able to access from Portfolio Manager this community report template, and that should save to your list of report templates that you can access and generate at any time. A couple of other things to take away from this last session. I love giving you all homework and takeaway tasks. So for this time, I will encourage all of you community liaisons to help other key community employees and individuals and volunteers that will be using Portfolio Manager or assisting with Portfolio Manager data maintenance. Get them set up with individual accounts and help them connect to your community account and vice versa. Number 2, create your maintenance and report protocol for your community's Portfolio Manager information. And number 3, attend one of our office hours sessions. We have 2 set, one for next Thursday, October 16th at noon. The next one is the following Thursday, October 23rd at noon. And we have we're going to see how those 2 go, and if there's high demand for another one, we are more than happy to create a 3rd office hours session if the demand is high and you all have many questions or want to practice things that you've learned here today, or just want to sit in and see what questions other people might have or what they might be trying to do. I realize we have 2 minutes left in the hour, so I want to thank you all so much for your time these last few weeks together for these Energy Star Portfolio Manager trainings. It's been really wonderful having you all take the time out to learn how to do this as a part of the EEPRC program. And thank you to Casey and the EEPRC team. And Casey, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts before we go to our Q&A.
No closing thoughts. Yeah, I think Klaus had put in some great questions that I think we should just go ahead and answer. The first question that Klaus put in was generally an ask to other communities, right, Klaus, about like how other towns are handling the capacity issue of how to have someone dedicated to this. And my initial thought on this, Klaus, is really that I agree. It's a big lift. I've done energy benchmarking for the cities of Portland and South Portland when I worked for those cities, and it is a lot of work. And they have had dedicated people that part of their job was doing that. And I would say that the biggest lift of it is the initial setup. I would say that the maintenance plan is what really helps keep the lift minimal, because if you're updating these things regularly, it means it's not a big push at the end. But I would say if there's, any committees that, your town of Orland has, or volunteers that are like willing to, support the municipality in this work, that this is a really great task to have, multiple people kind of helping support the data collection, the input, things like that.
Could I
Yeah,
interject here?
please do.
Klaus Hammond from Portland, from Orland, excuse me. You gave me the lead there. Any rate, what hours are you anticipating that this will take? The lift to get the data entered, and which data? Is it all 3 years that we submitted originally? You got them all as PDFs. I assume that all that needs to be entered into Portfolio Manager. You're nodding. And so, that in itself strikes me as, I mean, we went through the paper ones, 3 of us together. it took hours just to get the paper ones. Now we have a good template to enter into. It's a very elegant bit of software, and you know that part of it should be easy, but it's going to be hours, hours, hours. So I would say full time for a week to get started, but give me some guidance. Is it 40 hours? Is it 20? Is it 60? What's your estimate?
I mean, unfortunately, Klaus, I think for anything that has to do with an online platform, it's really the capability of the user using it,
We're-
you
Yeah,
know, and I
let's say we're pretty tech savvy. Just it's going from a PDF, right, on one screen to the portfolio manager on the other. If I have that right, and you go enter, 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 enter. There's no automated data entry. Number one, is that correct?
You know, Klaus, actually, if you don't mind me jumping in,
Yeah.
Casey, the data that we've collected, and I do apologize if I haven't mentioned this in previous sections or gone into enough detail in previous sessions, but there are ways to really greatly simplify meter data entry and property data entry. I think it will be especially relevant for the meter data entry. And for that, the data that you've shared with the Power Options and RBG team, that are program make up the program team for EEPRC, we have, or either we have or are in the process for the communities creating Excel sheets with all the meter data. So
Well,
we can help you create a data input Excel sheet that really
that'd be great.
simplifies the upload. So you're
I
not
mean,
agonizing with PDFs, and it's a much easier lift to just take that Excel file, upload it right into
oh, I mean that.
the meter entry area. And in the meter management page at the very bottom, there is a section, a hyperlinked button. Well, it doesn't look like a button, but it's a hyperlinked text that says update via spreadsheet. So that is
Okay.
where we can go together. And I'm happy to work with any of you individually
Oh,
on a
wonderful.
separate call
Yeah.
to
So
clean up that data and make sure it's
you've
easy.
lifted, you both have lifted my spirits here, and so we'll do that. I was going to say, you know, are those things available in CMV, and then you can upload? I mean, there are, you know, there should be many automated ways to do this. So
right.
I'm you know, enough of a techie to know how to do all that and feel comfortable doing it, and even, you know, training some other willing individuals. That second part will be challenging too, because I know that the staff at our buildings, they are totally maxed. All of our volunteers are totally maxed. Every time you ask somebody to do something, they look at you sheepishly or grin sardonically or something. So that's another part of it, and you know, that'll just have to be within the persuasive powers or whatever,
Hmm.
shaming powers, whatever it is, because this is obviously very worthwhile. It's very elegant software. You guys have done terrific work with these training sessions, of which I've only been able to attend part of them. That's part of the problem. Um, as a testimony to my own being kind of flat out, even as a volunteer retiree to boot. So, any rate, I think there was one more question there, Casey. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
is this about the
save and
partial?
continue.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, what is am I blind
Yeah.
here to an option?
Eden, can you maybe answer that? In my recollection, I feel like I would just put in zeros until I was ready to put the data
Hmm.
in. Is that the correct recollection?
Yeah, that's what I do as well. Unfortunately, there is no like save and continue later button. You can only like update and save. But yeah, I would put in
But
zeros.
but that is cumbersome to beat the band. Do you have any influence with portfolio? I mean, every
No
syllable
influence.
PDF
Well,
in the country has a way to save and continue. I mean, it's just
yeah.
nutty.
But Klaus, what I'll say about specifically about the data entry is that if you're using the Excel and like uploading the Excel, you can just keep updating that Excel file until you're ready to
Yeah.
do the full upload. And
Yeah,
that's
no,
like a good way to do it.
that makes
Yes.
sense. No, it's the initial property stuff. I got to go to a different document. Where was that? Where
Yep.
was the construction date and whatever? And there's no way, if I don't get it all done in one session, it could be several hours.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily have several hours to sit and say. Fortunately, it doesn't close out on you, but it's sort of a practical problem here that portfolio manager has not anticipated.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this very briefly in the first session, but I'm
Yeah, which
glad
I
we're
missed
speaking about it
completely.
again. And I only say that because I think one thing that we're encouraging is that if you don't have all of your property information, either the property information or the meter information for properties not a part beyond year 2 that you've selected for the EEPRC program, you can always start with the 2 properties that
Oh
that
yeah, that's
are
work
participating
enough.
in the program, and then just get the muscle memory flowing and get yourselves comfortable with portfolio manager, um, and just see how it feels and ease yourselves in. And then from there, you can expand the buildings that you have on portfolio manager later on.
Oh yeah.
And that
No.
would include adding meter data entry later. But
Yeah.
I think that's a much more manageable approach, and it would help uh, make the process a little bit easier and for you and anyone else working in portfolio manager. And I think Casey mentioned this too. This doesn't solve the partial entry problem, but um, I was thinking about it for your original question. If you have an Excel sheet where someone from the town is inputting the needed utility meter bill data in that Excel sheet monthly, and you or someone else wants to upload that to Portfolio Manager quarterly, that's another way to make it a little bit simpler so that there's fewer touches in Portfolio Manager, but you're still gathering all the needed information on a regular basis.
Yeah, I get that, and it's just the first part. It's just
Yeah,
getting the
Yeah, we
accounts set up,
understand.
and
yeah.
and so that's the daunting piece here. That's the big pebble in my shoe. And
Hmm.
so enough of my harangue here, and thank you for your patience. But I get the outlines here, and we'll just have to muscle through it to get to a good place. But it's gonna take some time. Yike.
Yeah, I mean, Klaus, I did it in my previous work and I agree with you. It's definitely it's a big sort of project to undertake as a municipality. And I would say but from our perspective, it feels like an important one, to be able to apply to
Oh
grants
yeah.
and be able to show what the baselines are and all of that. But I totally understand that it seems like an
Yeah.
insurmountable sort of thing of the amount of time that you have to put in and all the errors that could come up. And I totally understand that. And I just want to also
So
say that, like, yeah.
yeah. Could I just ask anybody
Mhm.
else on the call, how much time is it taking you to enter the information for one building? Is that an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours? What's for one building? And again, buildings are different, but any shout outs from the group? Who's entered stuff for one building, and how many hours has it taken for each of you?
I can talk about my experience if no one else has anything to say. For the building, it really depends on how many energy meters it has. Um, Most will have around 3 or 4, like 1 for
Yeah,
electricity, 1 for natural gas, 1 for water.
right.
And that does not take very long if I'm doing like 1 years of data. Maybe for me, 10 minutes per account, I would say.
That's with the electronic with automatic uploading of the data
That is either
or setting it up
if
or
for
both.
setting a building up.
Yeah, setting it up. Just getting to first base on this.
Um, I
Counts.
will say, like Casey, I enter in zeros for information. I don't have like readily available. So
Okay.
for me, it takes much shorter than it
Right.
could.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then I
So,
just make notes somewhere, Klaus, that I say
yeah.
like, oh, I left this thing out. Like, go send an email, send all the emails out to get that information, then like spend another, like maybe it takes, I don't know, half an hour to set up a building. Generally, that's how I feel, like to put in all the information. And then I agree with Eden, like about 10 minutes, even to do manual entry, honestly. I do agree with the Power Options team that the bulk of the time is spent collecting the information. And I think I mean, that could go over several, weeks of like just emails and trying to keep track of those things. But I don't think it takes more than, I
Okay.
don't know, an hour and a half to put in all the info, including all the emails that get sent out and things like that.
Well, thanks again for ending my questions anyway on an encouraging note.
I'm glad it sounds encouraging.
I'll go on
Yeah,
mute.
and
Thanks.
Klaus, if it's helpful, I um, we can work together to make sure that we send out Excel templates that will help you collect the necessary property data inputs that portfolio manager requires you to put in upfront, and another template for uploading bulk meter data. We can include both of those templates for you and other community members for the program so that you can use that as a resource to collect the data and make it feel a little bit more manageable and less like you're trying to herd cats of data.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And are those templates that include macros? Is that what makes it work?
No, I
Oh,
will not include macros.
okay.
It'll
Well,
be
it
a
seems to me like
very, very
that.
cut and dry Excel
Yeah. All
sheet.
right. Well, that's fine. That's a good place to start. But it seems
The
like
only thing
down
the
the road.
template does is puts the proper units and things like that, Klaus, so that
Right.
Yeah.
everything is in the right order, so that it pulls
Yeah.
things in the right order. That's all
Yeah.
the template does.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, everything's a help. Thanks.
Sure. Uh, and I also see a question from Roddy. Roddy, I believe you're from Ellsworth. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. And I know you jumped into the community liaison role later on, but your question is, we have a community center that's shared by 4 permanent tenants and also has 3 short-term rental rooms used by civic organizations and nonprofits. Utility bills are charged to the building as a whole, and then occupancy costs are distributed based on allocated square footage. Would we recommend showing that distribution in Portfolio Manager or just keeping everything consolidated as one building? And Eden, you answered in the chat, but would you like to speak aloud on
Yeah,
to that?
like I mentioned, it's up to your personal preference. Because it seems like the meters aren't separately metered, like you're just allocating off of square footage, I'd recommend just consolidating as one for simplicity, unless you wanted to keep track of your tenants on Portfolio Manager.
I'll also add that you can always create sub meters and track them without including them in the final metrics. Like you can just uncheck those sub meters when you're doing like so that they're not double counted or whatever. So if there's interest in seeing those numbers at some point on Portfolio Manager, you're welcome to put them on. But I agree with Eden that if you're getting the data as a whole building data is so hard to come by in multi-tenant buildings. So take that as, that's great that you have whole building data and that is the best form of data.
And I think I saw someone else typing in the chat a question. So it may have been answered, but if it's not, feel free to drop your question in the chat or come off mute if you'd like. And there's another question. Is it possible to drag and drop from Excel? I believe we answered that, but if we didn't
Yeah, I
quite
think
answer
that
your
was
question,
before you were talking about Excel, Claire. So I think that you answered their
yeah,
question about um the
right.
uploading template.
Yep.
And I know that we kept everyone like 15 minutes late, so maybe we'll start winding down.
Sounds good. Thank you all again for your time and for staying extra. As Casey said, we did go over today, but I think we covered a lot of good ground, and we are so looking forward to keeping in touch with you. And as you set up portfolio manager for your communities, and please lean on us wherever you can for questions. Come to our office hours the next 2 Thursdays at noon, and we appreciate it, everything that you're doing for your communities. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.